Welcome back to the TCM Teach Podcast. Business podcast designed exclusively for acupuncturists and Chinese medicine herbalists who are ready to build thriving, sustainable businesses. I'm Sabey Smith, a licensed acupuncturist, herbalist, professor, coach, and entrepreneur, and I've spent years helping practitioners like you not only deepen their clinical mastery, but also navigate the complex business realities of our profession. So today we're diving into a crucial but often misunderstood area, being acupuncture malpractice insurance, something you should all have. Many practitioners either carry the wrong type of coverage, aren't sure what their policy actually protects, or assume a general business policy is enough. So the truth is, malpractice insurance is the foundation for protection in our field. It's actually not even if you have an LLC, it's your malpractice insurance. So we want to make sure that we can ensure you can practice with confidence and security. So we're going to unpack malpractice a little further compared to episode 12, where we talked about different types of coverage. So please listen to my disclaimer here. Please remember, I am simply a practitioner here to support you on your journey. The information shared in this podcast is for educational and learning purposes only, and it should not be taken as professional, legal, or financial advice. So for specific guidance to your business, please consult with the appropriate licensed professional. Thank you. So what exactly is malpractice insurance? And we did talk about this previously, but we're going to dive in a little deeper this time. So the definition of malpractice insurance is malpractice insurance, also called professional liability insurance. Again, this should be a repeat. Protects you if a patient claims harm due to negligence, error, or omission in treatment. That matters in TCM because acupuncture involves needles, herbs, procedures like moxa, cupping, gua sha, tuina, heat lamps, e-stim. So even the most skilled practitioners can still have a risk of claims. That's why we want malpractice insurance. Think of it as your business safety net here. You hope you never need it, but it's there if something unexpected happens, and it can happen. And if you didn't listen to previous episodes, I actually shared a story where malpractice ended up saving a teacher of mine in the past in clinic for something that didn't even seem at fault of their own. It was a patient getting off of the table who ended up breaking their ankle, and the practitioner didn't even have anything to do with that. It was likely due to osteoporosis, and the patient actually ended up winning the case, and the malpractice is what ended up saving the teacher, my teacher, the practitioner in that case. So it's a good idea to have. It's not really expensive. If you're really thinking like a business, it's not expensive. Sometimes people think their LLC is going to protect them, but that's not for your actual practice. That's more general liability, limited liability company for financial things. So we'll break that down as we continue on this road together. Just please understand malpractice, I would say, is maybe one of the most important things you should have as a practitioner on top of your license. So key takeaway that I want you to have here is malpractice coverage is about safeguarding your professional reputation and financial stability. That is the beauty of having higher coverage. You pay a higher premium for higher coverage, and some states actually have a bare minimum of coverage, and you need to know what that is so that you're properly protected and in compliance. So what is the malpractice actually going to cover? So professional negligence claims. This could be an example. You left a needle in a patient by accident, and that's actually pretty common. It's not common for it to create injury, but say it does, that would be professional negligence. If you inserted it improperly, okay, if we have this shouldn't happen for many acupuncturists, but it does happen from time to time if someone's not paying attention. If you create a pneumothorax, that would be considered covered under your malpractice. And I actually have a story about that one. There was a friend of mine who had a practitioner working for them, and I believe they were needling gallbladder 21, if I'm correct. And my friend walked in the room and noticed that the patient had very labored breathing. And the practitioner thought it was just their COPD, but it turns out they actually created a pneumothorax. So needless to say, my friend ended up firing that practitioner, and they had to report things and, work with malpractice at that point to protect themselves. Not my friend, the person who worked for them. So it can happen. They didn't understand that the lungs were sitting really high due to the patient's condition. They didn't realize they created pneumothorax. So that is actually going to fall under treatment-related injuries. So pneumothorax, burns from moxa, bruising from cupping. Bruising from cupping, that should be in your disclaimer, honestly. However, if you... An example, bruises usually get better, but an example would be, okay, you did cupping on someone who's on blood thinners, and that's usually a contraindication because then they're going to bruise heavily, and then you just don't want to create all these problems, right? So if you create significant bruising, if it actually created harm to them, then maybe they could report you. Pneumothorax and burns comes down to rapport too, if they feel the need to sue you, but pneumothorax really should not be coming from acupuncturists in most cases because we're trained with needles and depth and everything. I would argue a practitioner who has less training with needles may be more likely to create a pneumothorax. So, treatment-related injuries, herbal prescription liability. So some policies cover adverse reactions or misdispensing, but not all of them do. So that's a key detail you want to confirm. If you're going to be dishing out herbs, you got to make sure you're covered. Because if you're not covered, that's not good. Because then you're just functioning independently and your malpractice won't actually cover you. Legal defense costs, attorney fees, expert witnesses, and court costs are often included in your malpractice. You get protection. That's why you have it. Coverage is not just about paying damages. It's often the biggest expense the biggest expense is your defense. So it's not just about paying damages. So just keep that in mind. Malpractice is covering a lot for you. It was designed for the profession. So get TCM Malpractice. What malpractice insurance does not cover? And unfortunately, some of these are more common than they should be. Some of these should not even happen at all. But sexual misconduct or unethical behavior, you're on your own on that one. Don't do that, ever. There's actually way too many cases that you can cite with sexual misconduct or unethical behavior. You're not going to get covered for that. You're out on your own. Claims outside of your legal scope of practice. You want to be careful. Everything you do in your clinic should be under your practice scope. And if it's not, guess what? You're out on your own again. Activities not disclosed in your application. So practicing in another state without listing it. Oops. Gotta update it. Selling products, supplements, or herbs. Unless you've added product liability coverage, which may be separate from your malpractice. Every company's different. You gotta have it. Because if you don't, guess what? You're on your own. You don't want that. Key insight. Knowing what's excluded is just as important as knowing what's covered. You just need it be covered. That's all. Check the scope of your coverage. Does it include acupuncture, moxa, cupping, gua sha, electroacupuncture, and herbal medicine? If you're not doing herbs, well, that's different. But does it cover everything else? Verify your geographic coverage. Are you covered across multiple states if you practice or teach? Teaching is, it depends what type of teaching you're doing. I'm not necessarily talking about teaching at a school per se. I'm more talking about if you're going to like coach someone over state lines or something, you got to be really careful what you're doing there. So just check on that. If you're doing something you should be licensed for, and you're not licensed there, you could be in hot water. Limits of liability. Standard policies often list per claim limits. So 1 million and aggregate annual limits like 3 million. So per claim could be 1 million, and then say there were 3 claims in a year, then it could go 3 cases covered 1 million each, which is a good amount. Occurrence versus claims made policies. Occurrence covers claims even after the policy ends. So for incidents that happened during the coverage period, And then claims made. So only covers claims made while the policy is active unless you purchase tail coverage. So most practitioners prefer occurrence-based policies for long-term protection. So keep that in mind. Common pitfalls practitioners make. Assuming general liability like office insurance also covers malpractice. No, it doesn't. It does not. They are different. You should have both. Next one, not realizing herbs may be included without a rider. So what's a rider? It's meaning an add-on for herbs, basically. So if herbs aren't covered, you want to find a way to get them covered if you can. If not, well, be careful. If you're covered under your license, there's some protection there. Forgetting to update their policy when expanding services, like adding telehealth. Hey, are you covered under that? If something happened to telehealth, whatever, gotta make sure you're covered. What else do I have here? Choosing the cheapest option without understanding exclusions. Yep, that's a problem. You want to have everything included. And then letting coverage lapse when moving states, relocating clinics, or taking a career break. I would say a lot of companies have coverage in multiple states. You just want to call and ask. That's all. All right, the TCM perspective on malpractice insurance. In TCM, we speak of Weichi being defensive chi. You've heard me say this before. That's our energetic shield, right? So just as Weichi protects the body from external pathogens, malpractice, and all insurance that you've heard me talk about is our professional shield against external risks. Without Weichi, we create a big window for disease and vulnerability. With Weichi, we have resilience, security, and freedom. And ultimately, we just want to have the stability to focus on our healing and practice. We just want to know we're covered. And while we care compassionately about patients, sometimes a bad apple walks through the door. I don't want to label someone as a bad apple, but sometimes there's people who are ready to create a problem for one reason or another. You don't want to be the person they can take it out on successfully. That's all I have to say there. So what are some practical action steps? Review your current malpractice policy, and is it occurrence-based, and does it cover herbs, cupping, gua sha, telehealth, the other things that you do? Call your insurer and ask specifically about exclusions. If you sell herbs or supplements, you want to look into product liability coverage. But selling herbs and supplements like outside of your practice where herbs aren't covered, but if you're like a product company, you should probably have a separate LLC anyway. So keep that in mind. But if you're creating your own on the side, if you're doing that hybrid method, maybe product liability coverage, just weigh your risks. And consider cyber liability if offering telehealth or storing records online. Your EHR is going to do a good job, but it doesn't hurt to check and ask. And schedule an annual policy review, just as you would an annual patient reevaluation. So what's the effect of proper coverage for you, your patients, and your practice? For you, peace of mind knowing you're protected. That's pretty straightforward. For patients, trust grows when they know you take their safety seriously. Good rapport. And for your practice, long-term resilience. One claim won't destroy what you've built. That's the big one. You don't have to go out and tell all your patients, hey, guess what? I have this amount of coverage. That's not necessary. Like, don't do that. So anyway, I want to leave you with this here. Understanding malpractice insurance may not be as exciting as learning new techniques or herbs, but it is a foundational aspect to your success as a practitioner and to your clinic. So just build strong Weichi. That's why we take our Yupeng Funks on, right? So ensures the body can thrive. Securing proper malpractice coverage allows the clinic to grow with confidence and peace of mind. So I created a resource called the Practitioner Protection Guide. That's going to walk you through the essential types of insurance and safeguards every acupuncturist should consider. So you will find that in the membership. And in our next episode, we'll be exploring business, banking, and taxes made simple for acupuncturists. So until then, thanks for tuning in to the TCM Teach Podcast. We'll see you next time. Cheers.